What's up guys, this is Wenzes. Welcome back to my channel where we talk about personal development for INFJs and how to create an epic life on your terms. Today we're talking about an INFJ hack. And that hack is how to use power over force. See, this is a concept by David R. Hawkins, and of course it works for everybody, but we as INFJs know instinctively that force doesn't work. It's something that we feel right away, and therefore we can tap into power way easier. We don't need to go through force over and over again to get to the other part. But the fact is, we know force isn't for us, but we don't know how to tap into power. That's why so many of us numb ourselves out, because we don't know where to go. We just know what isn't going to work long term. Today we're going to talk about what we can do as INFJs to tap into that power, to feel like we're creating that INFJ epic life, and how it all happens automatically. Before we get started, I want to remind you, if you want to take the next step in creating your INFJ epic life, then work with me privately. All the information you find below. When it comes to force versus power, this is a very powerful book. It's been huge in the personal development realm, but it's also something that is spiritually very much in alignment with what we INFJs believe. So the essence of it is that if you do something out of force, you're doing it out of character. For example, trying to convince somebody that you're worthy, trying to convince somebody that you're good enough, doing something that is not in alignment with your natural powers, your instinctual things, and your personal gifts in order to create something that has some kind of effect in the external world. That's like you saying, okay, I have absolutely nothing to do with numbers. This isn't something that I like, but I know the best way for me to make money is to be an accountant. So I'm going to go into this field. I'm going to shut down everything that I am, which is, being somebody who connects with people, being somebody who has a big picture thinker. I'm going to be in a place where I cannot use my innovation, but then I'm going to create some external result, which is I'm continuing to grow in that career field and I'm getting money for it. This is of course just an example, but this goes for so many things in our life. And we as INFJs very early on understand that if we do something like this, it's not going to be of any use, because why do something if we know, first off, it's not going to make us happy long term? We know that we're doing this in order to create something external, which then in itself doesn't energize us either. This is the typical scenario of buying things to impress people that we don't like, that kind of thing. And it goes for absolutely everything in the world. And we as INFJs know this very instinctually, because it's a feeling of I'm pushing against something. I'm pushing against the system. And the moment I stop pushing, I first off fall off altogether, and second of all, I'm not even getting something back. So I'm pushing and I'm getting maybe even less back than I should, or maybe the same amount. We INFJs, since we know this so easily and recognize this, we don't even go into those things. That's why you see so many people trying thousands of things and not being happy, but they don't know yet that this isn't the way to go. We know it. We know it very early on. But that is the reason why we feel like observers so often, because we know what isn't going to work. So why take that step? But here's the thing. Most INFJs believe that there is no other way out. We just know that game doesn't matter. It's just a game that doesn't make us happy, that doesn't make us fulfilled. It's, without any kind of meaning. So why do it? But there is no alternative either. So I'm just going to do the bare minimum to stay within that game, knowing and thinking in the back of my mind, well, is that what life is all about? Is that all there is? And I'm here to tell you, no, it's not. Because I've been there. I've been in this situation. I've thought the same things, and now I know better. And not only do I know better from my personal experience, but I have experienced firsthand that this works for every INFJ. This is not just something that works for INFJs, of course. It's something that works for everybody. But for us, it's a very unique way of approaching the problem, because we don't even have to understand why force doesn't work. For a lot of people, this is the hardest concept, to step away from force, and then stepping into power is sort of the next natural thing. For us, we already know this. We have to learn what power is all about, what this instinctual power is all about, how we can create a life that makes us feel like we're growing. Like every single day, you have more and more energy. You feel like this is a game that you love to play. Like, when you were a little kid and you couldn't wait for the next day to start. That is where we want to get to. And this only happens when you act out of power. To act out of power is to do something knowing that that you could do this for the rest of your life. It is in alignment with who you want to be. It is something that is in your zone of genius, not just your zone of excellence. This is also from a very interesting book, The Big Leap by Gay Hendricks. I can only recommend that. But these concepts will make a huge difference in your INFJ Epic Life creation. So when we know this exists, we of course have to learn how to tap into it. What is the difference? How do we know if we're doing something out of force or when we're doing something out of power? You'll see that just because you're good at something, that does not mean that you're in your zone of genius. Your zone of genius is the thing that you do naturally, that comes most natural to you. So these are things like, okay, what are you doing in your relationships that is causing you maybe even problems because you're doing it at the expense of your well-being, you're doing it at the expense of, your friendship, your power, whatever it is. A lot of those things we do. Is it that you are very understanding of others and you help them understand their potential? Is it that you live out your artistic self? Is it that you want to live out and talk about how differently you see the world? Is it that you have ideas that just are going on in your mind and you know that they're true and that they're possible and you want to share them with the world because it feels like you're neglecting the world if you're keeping them to yourself? And very often we do this with outlets that aren't healthy for us. We start helping friends who don't really want our help. We're telling people our ideas knowing that they have no concept for them, that they have no understanding. So we continuously get the message back of whatever you're thinking doesn't matter. You are just weird. Why do you care about these things? I don't understand what this is all about. And we very often come to the conclusion that if we want to have inclusion, we have to give these things up. We have to sort of play by the game of the forceful nature. And since we know that there is no sense in giving much more into the force game because it's not going to make us any happier, we just do the bare minimum. The point here is to understand that we have to give up a sense of inclusion. We have to give up this sense of I want to belong. Because of course this is an incredibly hard step to take. But we have to understand, we as INFJs are mentally very strong. We can do these things. It's not like something that comes very easily. It's not something that is just like a breeze. But once you start taking this step, you see that first off, you can manage it and you can manage it very well in comparison to a lot of other people. And second of all, it gets easier and easier because it's a psychological thing that you overcome. If you start expressing yourself more and in a way that is way more authentic to you, you tap into your power, you tap into your zone of genius. An example for this, a zone of excellence for me is to go out and to capture people's attention. I used to be so great at this. I remember when I was in my 20s, I could go to a club and just the way I moved, the way I presented myself, people were really fascinated with me. This was a skill. I was never under the impression that this is who I am, and so I never really cared. And it got to a point when you do this over and over again, you feel like, what am I doing this for? This doesn't give me any kick anymore. This is just something that I do for the moment. I get some kind of external feedback and then I'm exhausted. This isn't something what I want to pursue, and it just stops there. So why am I doing this? I'm doing this because I don't see that there's another alternative. I don't see that there's something in my life which makes me so much happier so I can neglect this. It's like you're giving yourself some kind of energy, and this energy is, let's say, 20 points. 20 points is by far not something that makes you feel alive, amazing, and happy to continue. But it's still better than nothing. So if you don't have something else which continuously gives you 30, then 35, 40, 45, and so it continuously grows, you're going to stay at this level of 20. So just because I was good at this, that didn't mean that that was my zone of genius. And you can recognize it for yourself as well. Something that you're really good at, something that other people look up to you for, or something where people say, oh, you're really great at this, or there's some kind of skill you got there. But you you know it's not something where you want to go deeper into it. See, this is not my zone of genius, but it might be somebody else's. So a lot of celebrities or people who are really good at putting themselves in the center of attention, and that's their thing, that's their zone of genius. There is no this is bad or this is wrong, and like being in the center of attention and being part of like society the way it is and being on the forefront of that is something negative. It is not. It is just a skill. What you do with it is the important aspect. But for me, this didn't energize me. That's my zone of excellence. My zone of genius, on the other hand, is what I do here. That's why I'm able to do that many videos over and over again for years to come. I did this before this had any prospect of making any money. This wasn't something that I did out of force. And it wasn't something that I felt I couldn't do this for the rest of my life. I did this because it came so naturally to me that I need to have an outlet for this. For the longest time, I used to have my friends for this. I used to be in such codependent relationships with potential partners, with my ex-partner, with friends. Like the list is endless, with my parents, every person in my life. Once I understood I need to protect those boundaries, and I still wanted to have this aspect in my life because that's who I am, that's when I found this outlet. And once I started expressing myself and my zone of genius in this area, what happened? I had to go through the deepest and darkest path in my existence, because that was the moment right after I had a huge reality break where I realized, okay, I can't continue doing this because I have less and less energy. I'm always acting out of force. There's always this thing of me holding back who I am because I want to be included. I want to be part of, whatever kind of society I was in at that moment. And understanding then, yes, this is a human need, but our mind can bypass this. It's a psychological thing, right? It's not like now I'm less part of society than I was before. But because I had to make that switch and I had to do something that from that perspective at that point seemed completely out there, seemed like something where I'm not going to belong anymore. I'm going to step into the unknown. I'm going to step into something where people are going to judge me for. And it's not just that people write something negative under my videos. It was people that I hung out with would see that I'm not like them. They would see that I have interests that aren't part of the norm. They would see that I'm not satisfied with the current lifestyle that I was living and that they were living as well. So in the moment you step out of that, the moment you step into your zone of genius, you automatically are showing people what they're not doing. That's just part of the deal. It's not like once you do something like, you start writing your book or you publish your book or you decide to move out of the country and start your own thing that is out of, the norm. Or it could just be that you say, okay, I'm going to choose different friends or I'm going to choose a different lifestyle or whatever it is that is way more in alignment than the thing you've been doing before. Remember, we feel on a subconscious level in order to be included, in order not to be abandoned, which is a psychological need of ours, not just INFJs, just everybody. In order not to fall into this trap, we have to play by certain rules. And those rules say, play by the games of the current force. What is the current force and how can I be part of that? Being in power is different because power is something that you can stand by yourself in. It is always very uniquely you. And so that switch is the hard part, not once you've made it that you continue to go. Because when you switch it, you have to force your mind to deal with this fear of abandonment. You have to deal with the fact that you're not going to be part of the group how it used to be. And it definitely changes. So there were people who I didn't have any more interest in because I was so focused on this. They removed themselves from my life. I had people who removed themselves because they couldn't gain anything from me anymore. I was just so focused on a different field that it didn't do anything for them, so why stay? And I also had people in my life that stayed in my life, but the entire dynamic changed because I changed. I changed from being somewhere which is completely in a forceful field into somebody who continuously acts out of power. That's why I encourage everybody, get the poster. If If you don't have the poster yet on the 5 pillars to an INFJ Epic Life, it's for free. Get it there. It will give you some inspiration where to start. Because every one of those pillars allows you to step more and more into your personal power and to do something that is out of the norm, to do something, because with every single step, you re-energize yourself. You're not doing something to get some kind of external feedback. You're doing it because with every step you take up more space. But this transition, this way of living in a new way that makes you grow continuously, always has the price of facing that fear of abandonment. It has to happen. You have to be willing to be judged. You have to be willing that other people will have an opinion about you that doesn't reflect how you want to be seen. And that is, of course, a hard psychological thing to take on. But again, we can do hard things. That's the point. There's this quote that I really like a lot, and it goes something like, why did I have to cross that river? That river that was so hard and it took me so much strength and it was so difficult. Why was it necessary for me to cross that? And the answer is because your enemies can't swim. Your enemies in this case aren't other people necessarily. It's your limiting beliefs. It's like being stuck at a certain place. It's once you take this on, which is a hard thing to do, but you can't do it, you're in freedom mode. You're in this position where you act out of power. You act out of, this is who I am. This makes me naturally me. If somebody comes into my life and they don't like who I am, I'm not going to play any kind of part in this. I'm not going to try to convince them. I'm going forward and I'm doing this because I intrinsically love every step of the way. This is who I want to be. And the great part of this is that once you start, you already feel better. It doesn't mean that you have to achieve something massive right away. You already know the first moment you step into this, that this is something that you can hold on to. There's this quote I read very often, and it's quoted by Albert Einstein, but if it is, I don't even know. But it's very fitting to the situation. And it is, if you want to be happy, don't attach yourself to people, things, or places. Attach yourself to a goal. A goal you can continuously hold on to. And the goal we can all hold on to is, I create a life that brings joy to me and to the people around me and to the world in general. That is one thing that you can always hold on to, because there's nothing that is untrue about this statement. If you believe my life doesn't matter, the question arises, so what are you going to do? If you choose to continue to live and you want to live a fulfilling life, we need to get ourselves into a position where we give ourselves the biggest chance possible to enjoy this. We're already in it, so let's make the best out of it. And to do that is to tap into our power. Tell me in the comments if you want me to go deeper into this topic. So how to make that switch from force to power in more of a direct way, so step by step, and how you actually expand and then fill up the space. It's a really interesting concept, but I want to know if you want to see more of that. Remember, if you want to take the next step in this area with my help, then work with me privately. And if you want to watch another video now that is in alignment with today's topic, then watch the video on the undeniable superpower of the INFJ. Like always, guys, I wish you a wonderful day, a great week, and I talk to you next time. Bye.